Today we are going to have Srimad Bhagavatam class, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers citing the Lord's version. Sri Swami is about to answer the questions put forward by Maharaj Parikshit in the previous chapter. A lot of questions. We're on text number 1, and we only got through the first paragraph of the purport, so we'll chant the mantra again. But first, let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, who is the supreme, all-pervading personality of Godhead, who is the prime cause of all causes, from whom all manifested universes arise, in whom they dwell, and by whom they are destroyed. I meditate upon that eternally effulgent Lord who is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and is yet beyond them. It is He only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma, the first created being, and through Him this world like a mirage appears real, even to great sages and demigods. And because of Him the material universes created by the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I meditate therefore upon Him, the Absolute Truth, who is eternally existent in His transcendental abode, and who is forever free of illusion. Lord Sri Krishna, Ki Jai. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth which is understandable by those devotees who are pure at heart. Highest truth, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Sri Vyasadeva, is sufficient in itself for God realization as soon as one attentively and submissively hears this message of Bhagavatam. He becomes attached to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Chapter 9 answers by citing the Lord's version, text number 1. Shri Sukha Vacha Atmamayam Ratarajam Parashyanu Bhavatmanaha Nagate Tarta Sambandhu Swapna Drastur Ivanjasa Swapna Drastur Ivanjasa, like a dream. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. It is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. We're going to start right in the second paragraph. One sentence before this paragraph, in the previous paragraph, in the Bhagavad Gita, the same thing is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, that the Lord is present within the heart of every living entity, and all consciousness and forgetfulness of the living entity are influenced by the Lord. All consciousness, or as you could say, remembrance and forgetfulness. Because if you're conscious, then you have some sort of remembrance, right? Consciousness. Then paragraph number 2. Now the next question will automatically be made as to why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. See that? I have a little question about the verse itself, the way the sentence is structured. But anyway, now the next question will automatically be made as to why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be in His pure consciousness as the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as the Lord. So we have a certain qualities which we share with Krishna. I think the percentage is estimated at 78%. And so we have this tendency to be independent. That means as Krishna is completely independent, then he's also, and that quality of being completely renounced. Independence means that you can just renounce something and go away from it. Krishna has that power. But we also have that power to renounce something and go away from it. It's that sense of independence. No, I don't have to do this. I reject this. I'm going in another direction. Yeah? So Krishna also, of course, has that capacity in full. We have it as a tiny little part and parcel. That ability to renounce something and go away from it. And Krishna has that he's famous for that actually, in his pastimes. You can imagine in a conditioned soul, if the conditioned soul is dancing in the middle of the night, in the moonlight, with thousands of beautiful girls, a conditioned soul, of course can't have that can't really happen, but a conditioned soul would never be able to renounce such a situation. He would never be able to say, just disappear, say, no, I don't think I want to be here. I'm going to go away from these thousands of beautiful women. I'm just going to go off and walk away by myself, go somewhere in the forest. I don't think that can happen to an ordinary living entity. But Krishna can actually do that because he is self-sufficient. He is completely Atmarama. He is completely self and fully satisfied within himself. Therefore, he actually can do that. And he does do that, but then he comes back because the love of his devotees is so strong that he draws him back, and he doesn't want to disappoint them. So that's why Krishna comes back. He doesn't want to disappoint him. It's not that he's feeling like he needs to be satisfied in some way. He just doesn't want to disappoint his devotees. So we can understand some of these things because we also have this partial, minute aspects of his character and qualities. I'll read a little more. The Lord is, as he is constitutionally made, now that's another very important thing, to be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. Every living entity is individual and very unique, which is another inconceivable thing. That every person is, even twins and triplets and so forth. You see some of these families, they have a woman will have 5 children at one time, and they do studies on them, and they're all completely different persons, even though they look identical. The bodies look identical, but the soul are completely different and independent. This is truly an amazing feature of creation, that every living entity, even the cows, you see every cow out there has a different personality. They're not just the same. They have a lot of sameness. They like to do things together in a lot of the same ways, but they're very different in each personality. So as we are constitutionally made, that means we have a unique design that is designed to render some special, unique service to Krishna, to give him happiness. Even amongst all the gopis, they all have their own independent personalities. Some are very mild and gentle and humble, and others are a mixture of that. And then we have the fiery ones like Lalita, and all these personalities, these very dominant personalities. So many, and the mixtures, there's all kinds of mixtures in there of personalities. And they all interrelate with Krishna in such a way as to give him a special pleasure. they're each individually designed to give Krishna a special pleasure. And likewise, we are also made the same way. We have that individual capability of rendering some special service to Krishna to give him. All you want to do is get that look from him, a look of happiness, and that every soul can do. A loving, because it says loving service to Krishna as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as Krishna. The whole non-devotee class of living entities are all desirous of becoming equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. Not fit. That means we haven't got the bodies, we haven't got the mind, we haven't got the power, we're just little tiny parts and parcels. But because we have that tendency to feel so powerful, because we're actually connected to that supreme power, especially when you realize the Brahman realization is so much like that, you really feel like you are God because you're so much connected. You're so purely connected that you feel like you're God, but actually, of course, you never lose that little spark of independence and separateness from that supreme consciousness. Even though the two consciousnesses become very close, you never lose that particular uniqueness and difference from Krishna. The whole non-devotee class of entities are all desirous to become as equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. The living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord because they wanted to become like him. Yeah, if you want to become like him, I'll create you this, because you're a special playground where you can pretend to be like me. Because if that's your desire, and that's the desire of most conditioned souls, Krishna will provide a planet, Krishna will provide a society, Krishna will provide associates, that you all agree that you all want to do this imitation program and have your own little playground where you can pretend to be like me, but there is a catch to the whole thing. You're going to have to get old and die at some point. And then you have to leave the whole playground behind. Whatever you've accumulated, how many marbles, whatever it is, you got to leave them all behind. So it's a very strange thing, because really not fit to become so. We're just simply not fit to become God, but we are fit to serve him in a very nice way. The living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord. They want to become like him. As a person thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualifications, similarly, when a living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put into a condition of dreaming that he is a king. We all like to think that we can really rise to some special place, some special acknowledgement where all the living entities will worship us. And because we're so highly qualified to lead all the people, I want to become a king. But actually, it's just a dream. It's not real. The whole thing's not real. Whatever we dream is not real. But we do have an existence, and it does have a purpose. But it has a purpose with that unique created entity that we are, to render pure loving devotional service to Krishna. And then we'll be in our constitutional position of happiness. As a person thinks of becoming a king, possessing the necessary qualifications, similarly, when the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put into a condition of dreaming that he is king. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord. And the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forgets his factual life, and thus he dreams of a land of utopia. Prabhupada's having some fun. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord. And the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forgets his factual life and he dreams of the land of utopia where he may become one like the Lord. The child cries to have the moon from the mother, and the mother gives the child a mirror to satisfy the crying and disturbing child with the shadow of the moon. Similarly, the crying child of the Lord is given over to the shadow of this material world, to lord it over as karmi, and to give up this in frustration to become one with the Lord. Both these stages are dreaming, illusions only. There is no necessity of tracing out the history of when the living entity desired this, but the fact is that as soon as he desired such, he was put under the control of Atma Maya by the direction of the Lord. Interesting point. There is no necessity of tracing out the history when the living entity desired this. By the power of the three modes of material nature, as soon as the living entity contacts the three modes of material nature, he becomes a karmi. He becomes subject to karma. But when that began, when does it all begins? It doesn't really matter. The point is you have to get out. You have to stop dreaming. You have to get out of the illusion. There is no necessity of tracing out the history when the living entity desired this, but the fact is that as soon as he desired such, he was put under the control of Atma Maya by the direction of the Lord. Therefore, the living entity in his material condition is dreaming falsely that this is, in parentheses, mine. And this is, parentheses, I. I, me, mine, I, me, mine. George Harrison has a song like that. I, me, mine, everything. The whole world is this, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. Of course, he read Prabhupada's books and that's where he gets the ideas. I, me, mine. The dream is that the conditioned soul thinks of his material body as I, or falsely thinks that he is the Lord and that everything in connection with the material body is mine. Thus, in dream only, the misconception of I and mine persists life after life. This continues life after life, as long as the living entity is not purely conscious of his identity as the subordinate, part and parcel of the Lord Krishna. Oh, there's a little more. In his pure consciousness, however, there is no such misconceived dream. And in that pure conscious state, the living entity does not forget that he is never the Lord, but he is eternally the servitor of the Lord in transcendental love. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So that's it, folks. That was a long purport. A lot of information. Prabhupada always brings it to the same point. Pure loving servitorship to Krishna is what will satisfy the soul. Nothing else will satisfy the soul. Hare Krishna.